Well, hello, Liberty listeners. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Road. Today, you guys get really the privilege of hearing from Kelley Wolf, somebody who has really taken the time professionally and personally, as I've spoken with her, to dig deep and to ask some really thoughtful questions of us and of so many people that she gets to touch and impact. And I think it's going to be a really wonderful and meaningful podcast. So I'm excited for you guys. Kelley Wolf, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I'm going to confess this to our audience. Kelley and I had a conversation that I want to tell you guys was like 90 minutes or something. We just kept talking and talking and talking. And so I said to her, I'm a little nervous that we're going to go down a few rabbit holes, but we're not. We're going to be super professional.
I will watch those holes. Yes, I will keep it together.
It's not just you, girl. It's me too. But I'm excited to have you here. First, before we get started, tell our audience what you do. I mean, you're a coach and you're a speaker and you're a philanthropist, and there's so many things that you're an author, and we're going to unpack them one by one. But just give us kind of some context here.
Yeah, broad strokes is I'm 15 years in the game, which is bananas. I'm an executive coach. My first book came out 3 years ago called Flow. And prior to that, I worked in television for 10 years. So that's kind of the backdrop. And what got me on this path was just curiosity of people and wanting to know more about people. So I really am a deep diver into the human experience, I guess. But my professional background is degrees in clinical psychology and also coaching. Yeah. As I've now done over a decade. Isn't that weird when you say that out loud sometimes and you go, how is this even possible that much time has happened?
I say that often and more and more.
And I'm so grateful because I really feel in it. You know, when you start anything, you're sort of like feeling for the walls and wondering how it goes. And this is a world where I feel really calm and comfortable in it because I think of the time and the commitment to it. And I love it. Maybe that's why you don't know time goes by. Because when you love something.
There you go. Mm-hmm. When you're literally in flow. Isn't that the definition of flow?
That's one of the technical, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which wrote the other book, Flow, and the more broad strokes, because he studied that the state of flow for 30 years. One of the primary pieces of being in the flow state is losing track of time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's worth noting that you had to point out to your husband and his family who have the name Wolf, that Wolf backwards is flow. I think that's hilarious.
The probably more hilarious and definitely personally funny thing is I didn't see it at first either. I wrote flow became sort of my technique, my mechanism. That was something that I would use with clients to try to tap in, and it's a tool and it's a recipe. It's however you want to look at it. And I would use it all the time. And I thought, if I could just get this on the page, people who couldn't come to coaching or have the time for coaching or afford it can just get the book and know and understand that tool. Had most of it done and looked at it one day and went, oh, honey. And I'm like,
that's hilarious.
Did you know that our last name is Flow spelled backwards? We all had a revelation in that moment. And I thought, well, that's obviously my destiny, or hello.
Yeah. Hello. It was meant to be. And can you define the acronym as it's listed on the cover of the book?
Yeah. So in this case, flow stands for finding love over worry. And it sounds really simplistic, but when you really say it out loud again, finding love over worry, it's what happens. It's the alchemy that happens when we actually take time to challenge and question anxiety, worry, concern, rumination, things like that. It's not to challenge circumstances, and we'll talk about that later probably, but it is to challenge the rumination that our brain loves to do. It's that little squirrel brain that just loves to jump around. And in my method, I have what I call the foundations that are non-negotiables. Those are munch, move, meditate. That means you got to eat, you got to move, assuming that you can. And if you can't, I have a whole section on that. And meditate does not mean levitate in the woods. It does not. It could mean 30 seconds of just dropping into your body. 3 deep breaths could even be that. And we sort of unpack that. There's those two components are really what comprise the entirety of what flow is. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex than that, but that's the base of it.
And when did the book hit relative to your career as an executive coach? Was it halfway through, at the beginning?
This is about 10 years when it was published. I'd say
Okay.
10 years into really working as a coach and really doing that.
So you were doing the research really for yourself and then sharing it in the book for us, right?
Well,
you were in the thick of it.
Yeah. And what I found sort of early on, and it's interesting how this has pivoted in a little bit, is I would hear people often talk about, oh, it felt like flow. It was so yummy. It's so good. It felt like flow. And they would use that word, sort of not knowing exactly what they were even talking about, but they would use it in a way as if I can't really have that. That's elusive. That's only if it happens to me. That's when I go surfing or jump out of an airplane or lose track of time, reading. And the more that I started to understand it, and I really, because I'm such president of the science club over here, yes, that was me. I am such a nerdy person when it comes to understanding the dynamics of our behavior. I read Flow, which is Mihail's giant massive book, which by the way is not for the faint of heart. I really got in the weeds of what is that thing, and could we have it more with consciousness? Is it something that we could access if we had sort of a playbook for it? Definitely tried it on myself with permission. And I say that, I think that's important with clients. Would you want to try this? Would you mind reporting back to me? How does this feel to you? Is this a thing? And sure enough, brick by brick, yeah, it's a thing. And yeah, it works. And I would never tell anybody on earth, we are not supposed to live in a state of quote unquote flow all the time. That's not how life works. Could we cut down our rumination and worry and all that time that we give away to that? Absolutely. I will put my name, my face, and my whole thing on saying unequivocally, you can cut that down. And by cutting it down, you're going to introduce a lot more space into your life by proxy, regardless of what it is that you want.
Yeah. Give us an example of, a fictitious client, let's say. Give us an example of somebody who comes in with said preoccupation or problem or whatever it is they're trying to overcome. They come to you as an executive coach and you walk them through their circumstances,
rumination
dilemma.
Bucket.
Yes. All the things and utilize this flow, this concept of flow as you have defined it.
I want to say there's bigs, okay? There's really big ones, big consequential places that we can get stuck ruminating, but they have big consequences, right? So let's put that over here. The example I'm going to give you is just what happened to me this morning. So I think that's an easier path to sort of understand it. Get up early. I have 3 children. My middle child's 11. He didn't finish his homework last night. He went into a total tailspin of, I'm going to be in trouble. I don't understand this. All the things. As a mother, and do you have children?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
As well.
So as a mother, I think it is our final frontier. We tap into our children. It's the hardest place to learn how to stay calm, disconnect, not tap into it. His sort of elevated energy began to elevate my energy. Let's put it that way. And then I went into, or could have gone into, is this the wrong school? I'm just making stuff up, but
sure.
I shouldn't have let him stay up last night, oh gosh. Okay. We're doing all the things, right? We shouldn't have had sugar for breakfast, starting to ruminate on things. I catch myself. That's the observer state. That's finding. Oh, I'm ruminating. Got it. I'm worrying. Okay. Understood. Then I'll start to say out loud or in my head just a handful of things that I think are lovely. You could look at them as gratitude or love. In this case, I use the word love. And I'm choosing, that's the over, to choose love over worry. So then I driving him to school and I went, we live in the most beautiful place. Look at these mountains. Wow, what kids have this big of a field to go run out into? My child's going to school.
Yeah.
He's having lunch at school. He just saw a friend when he walked in. He's got friends at school. So I'm just slowly but surely disrupting that other line of thinking versus spending the day in that place of worry and rumination. That is the kindergarten version of what it can be.
No, but it's so helpful as you're saying it. Yeah.
Yes. To just understand how you can practice in what I call the softball arena, which is they don't have big consequences attached to them. We build up to much higher consequences in the work that I do. So you can have some pretty big things happening that could have massive ripple effects. That's going to take a different level of consciousness and a different level of understanding to really use this practice in a positive and safe way. But just to give you an entry point, I think that's a good way to understand it just on a real kind of basic level.
Absolutely. I want to back up really quickly because I'm mindful that our listeners are, for many, they're tuning in because they want your expertise. For some, they're tuning in because they want to hear a story of a woman who has left something behind and chosen something else, right? She intentionally or accidentally made a decision that worked out. So many of the women who are listening are trying to figure out what's next for them. That may come as a result of circumstances, empty nesting, a divorce, not liking and recognizing for the first time that they don't enjoy the work they're doing. Right. Give us a sense of, because you talked about having been in television for 10 years and now doing this work, it's wildly different. And then you shared that you were the president of the science club.
In fifth grade. So, I mean, I'm just not the actual one now, but I love that stuff. I'm just a total, But
it's in some ways you came back to yourself. I don't know what you were doing in television, but it's like you came back to that. Can you just back up really quickly and share a little bit about how you landed where you are so that people can hear that there is an opportunity to change one's mind or one's heart and to act on it?
I mean, yes. And can I acknowledge the challenge, that how hard that is sometimes?
Yeah.
So let's just give a little shout out to how hard that is.
Yeah.
And we are patterned animals. Our brains are patterned. We operate from patterns. So it's doubly hard because we tend to do what we've always done. In my story, I originally I had dreamed of being in broadcast journalism. I was that person, that's what I wanted to do. And I went to college for that. And I pursued that after college. And I think I came to a point where I realized that I wasn't getting joy from it, but also it wasn't really what I thought it was. There was a lot of shenanigans. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
That were not in alignment with who I am at the core. And at every turn, I kept finding myself either having to abandon myself or do the job. And I thought, I don't know if I can keep doing this way. So what I really sat down and asked myself is, well, what's at the core of this? What do I love about this? Because I had been on television to be famous enough for a short amount of time enough to know that was not my thing. That is not what I wanted. That is not what I liked. It was not a fame-driven thing. It was not a money-driven thing. It was a people-driven thing. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to tell people's stories. I wanted to hear people's stories, similar to what you do. I had a genuine and remain having a very genuine curiosity in what I call human safari. I cannot help it. I cannot stop it. Don't take me to a dinner party unless you want to unpack every little thing with me afterwards, because I can't not do it somehow. So what I thought was, well, wait a minute. That doesn't have to be on a TV screen. That could be in a room with just one other person. If it's not attached to needing to be this big, giant fanfare, I still could have that piece of myself that desired something. So that's where I started, was what's at the core of what I really desire? What do I really enjoy? And then I just added some circles to it. Okay, so what would I need to do? And that's the practical side. What would I need to do to make that happen? So what I did at the time was I went back to school and got my degrees in clinical psychology. There's another pivot point because when I graduated, I thought, I don't know that I want to work in this capacity, the way that clinical psychology works. And by the way, amazing, fantastic, powerful, probably not the best plan for me as a practitioner. And at the time, I thought, you know what I really like doing is I really love finding people's magic, reminding them about it, and then doubling down until they get it and then they move forward. Well, that doesn't exist in a classic therapeutic setting necessarily. It can, but it absolutely existed in the coaching world. And so that's where I went into that world. So I guess the bigger answer, as I'm saying it out loud, is sort of giving yourself permission to look deeper at what it is at the core of what you love, and then to kind of grow from that place. And that everything doesn't have to be a job. My gosh. I mean, sometimes, I just want to say that to people all the time. I mean, we really drank the Kool-Aid on it has to be a job or a hustle or a something, or I don't really know what. I think you should look at metrics of your life and ask yourself, well, does it need to be a job? I mean, I don't know what anybody's life is, and they really have to test that and ask those questions. But big picture, start with that place. And it's not passion, I don't think. I think it's more like what it really interests me and what even challenges me versus what am I passionate about? What challenges me? And mine was figuring people out. Let me just get the shovel out and go digging through your brain.
Yeah.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Although I would love to do that with you.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying it's not passion. It's something that's come up here several times. And I think it removes the overwhelming search for one's passion. And sometimes you don't know what it is until you're in it. And I heard recently, and this came up in another podcast that we just an interview we just did. And it was someone made the distinction between pursuing your talent. He's a college professor, and he was saying,
Galloway?
Yes, yes.
I know this whole conversation, but continue. Keep saying it because it's important.
And my daughter is at NYU where he teaches, and I had sent it to her. She's a senior, and is coming up against some of this, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in the big bad world in a year. What am I passionate about? And I thought it provided some really healthy context.
I agree.
Having said that, we, for some reason, don't give ourselves the credit for what we are talented at. And so we think about passion as something that maybe if I'm busy doing this, I'll find myself in flow. To go back to the original conversation.
That's interesting.
But if we could pause, as women in this stage of our life, surely we know something that we're good at, whether we've been paid for it or not, right? Going back to what you just said, it doesn't have to be for work. We can ask people around us what they think we're good at. I hope we know by now, but I think sometimes we need that clarity and that objectivity. So what say you, Kelley Wolf, about this concept of talent versus passion?
I feel you just said it. And I actually really like Scott Galloway's points of view on this too. Because I do think that there's a bit of a trap there, the passion trap. And it can also, I feel, get people really off the scent for a while, and kind of bopping around in different places and then discovering, oh, that wasn't it. So, and that isn't objectively wrong either. But I think, and I'm trying to remember who said this because I would love to give them credit for it, but if I'll see if I can find it. That there's these 4 sort of circles. And you said one of them, which is really important. Ask people who love you, not people who are competitive with you. So watch that little nugget right there. Yeah. Ask people who love you, what do they see in you that you lose track of time, that you seem to do really well, that you sort of enjoy, that you light up when you start talking about it at a dinner party, or, when you randomly want to talk about this thing, you want to pull the conversation back to that. Pay attention to that. I would absolutely engage people around you to ask that question. And then I want to tap into, like you said, your daughter, that timeline. Don't worry about making mistakes, you guys. I mean, some of this is about, okay, fine, I followed my passion and it ended up not being my passion. I don't know. I hear from that group so often that they're so worried about making a mistake and so believing that the thing I do next is the thing I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and I want to say to them, yeah, you might be talented, you might be passionate, you might be neither nor. You can also take a step forward. How many things did we all do that we may or may not have even liked? I was a DJ, for crying out loud. I don't know how to DJ. One time I played the same song 8 times in a row, and the guy came out and he goes, "You gotta stop." And I was like, I don't know how to work the thing. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. It was a radio station, and I was like, and he's behind the glass going like, giving me the stop it sign. And I was like, it was Babylon by David Gray. Do you remember that song?
I actually love that song, but yes,
I
remember
love it too. But I mean, 8 times. I was like,
not 8 times. Yeah.
But I couldn't. Okay, well, so I realized it's clearly not my thing.
I'm going to give DJing up for a minute anyway. Yeah.
So some of it's kind of go ahead and make a mistake, or not, or try some things, and don't worry so much about your passion. And I do like Galloway's idea of focus on your talents. Imagine what your talents are. I think there's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that it's not too late. I used my daughter in college as an example, but I think it's not too late. In fact, it might be just the right time when you've amassed all this wisdom and all this experience and learning about who you are and coming to some understanding of what you do have to offer. It's just the right time to be leaning into that, right?
I agree.
So as I was doing my research, my Kelley Wolf research, I found a little. No. It went well. No, but it's actually on your website. So I'm not uncovering anything that's any dirty little secrets. No,
I don't care. They're all out there anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. You talk about specifically the book, but I think I would venture to say it's most of the work that you're doing as a life recipe. What are the ingredients that you think in your experience with clients and maybe even in your own life that you think are the ingredients that we need for healthy living?
Yeah, it's funny because again, this one's for your daughter and her friends out there. DJ, raise your hand. I went to baking school, so thought that could be a path. What I learned, because I love to cook. That's my flow. That's one of my flow states, especially when I can lose myself in it and I don't have, there's no time or soccer practice or, anything like that. And I can just go there. But what I learned in baking is that it really is specific. You kind of can't mess around too much. You kind of got to stick to the thing. Whereas cooking, you can add a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So the recipe for me, it's simple. It's sort of like your grandmother's banana bread. Just don't mess it up. Just do it. Just do what it says. It says half a teaspoon of baking soda. Just do half a teaspoon, right?
Yeah.
In this recipe, it really is find love over worry with those foundational pieces. What I find really interesting, and just to say it again, the foundational pieces are munch, move, meditate. I elaborate on the book, so if you care to know more, definitely get it, or heck, I'd send it to you because you only make like 6 cents on books, so it's not even about money. It's more just, it's almost too simple for people to accept the simplicity of it, so they resist trying it or even doing it, which I find fascinating. I'm a perfect example because I've changed my life through that exact process and that exact recipe. If I keep repeating the recipe, I keep getting the best banana bread. It comes out the same pretty much every time. If I don't mess with it or I don't try to get tricky with it and think I can add this or remove that. And I just stick to the plan. It is that simple. If you are stuck in worry or rumination, practice this, practice gratitude, practice love, see what happens. You will be utterly amazed. And what the science part is, which is the cool part, because our brains are patterned, and I'm sure your audience knows this stuff too. Like, we have myelin in our brain that's patterned to do the same thing. It's just, it's how we survive this long. It's how we live this long. We can change that pattern by repeating something over and over again. So if you keep using that recipe over and over again, eventually you'll remember without looking it up in a book. You know, all those things will happen. The alchemy will occur. So the recipe is find love over worry. It just is.
So Kelley, as you're talking about that, is that the same as muscle memory?
Yes and no. So the patterning of I'll ask you this question.
Okay.
If you're driving to Gelston, you're in LA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to Gelston. You're going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Do you assuming there's not a ton of traffic, do you mostly go the same way every time?
Yes.
So that's the pattern of how we operate. Do you mostly order the same thing at a restaurant over time? Unless you're going to Italy or you're going on a trip or you're going out with friends, that's when we branch out. But we typically we are patterned animals. That pattern was created in our brains to keep us safe. If we knew not to go left, because that's where bad things happen, then we'll go right and keep going right and keep doing that. What we found out over time is that part of our brain can actually become flexible by challenging it enough times. And then you can replace what I would call an old pattern with a new pattern. So I use this metaphor of if you live on a dirt road and you drive on it and it starts to create ruts, you know? Mm-hmm. So you kind of go in that one because that's easier than bopping around and over here and over there. What you're going to have to do to change it is you're going to have to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be a little bumpy, you know, just like it would be on that dirt road. So you're going to have to move the car over just an inch. It's going to be bumpy. You might pop a tire even. I don't know what's going to happen there. Right. But in order to get that rut to the other side, you're going to have to do that part that feels a little bit like, what am I doing? This feels weird. And that's where, like the example I used for you this morning, because I personally practice this so much, thank God. Can you imagine if somebody was like teaching you something and they just didn't do it for themselves ever? That would be horrifying. I really do have to practice it myself often, but I can move faster to getting myself out of that place instead of staying in it. So I used that really simple example this morning. But man, I've had times where that thing this morning could have kicked me off into a whole day of going, gosh, I hope he's okay. I think I should email the teacher, you know, whatever. I could have gone down a serious rabbit hole there. And that time equity is really where your information lies, where your peace lies, where your answers lie. You know, we give away an enormous amount of time equity to worry, to rumination, just to that part of ourselves. So yes, this is in my opinion, life recipe that when we're out of it, man, what the asset that is us, especially women, hello, when we could like take that part or at least dim it down a little bit, just look out because, you know, we are a force.
I was even thinking about, I mean, you had just listed all the things it did for you, but what a gift I think it's your son is your middle one. Yeah. What a gift to see him or to see you shift what was, you know, anxiety producing in not having his homework ready. And then he was going down, I'm sure, a negative path. Right. Yeah. And it was like, no, Mom, this person who is older and wiser and knows better we all hope and not always the case, but we all hope is showing me another way to process this moment, to shift, to take that 1 inch over in the vehicle, right, to avoid that rut of worry, and to be a living example of how you manage that and then how you helped him manage that. So it's not just a gift for us, which is enough, but it's also a gift for those people around us. And then we're passing that baton, so to speak, of how to live this recipe, this particular recipe of giving worry over and replacing it.
Yeah. And he, like all of us, and I'm sure, I think a lot of us, especially in the helping fields, we often end up helping in the area we most needed help in, so it took me a while to even kind of come to that awareness of like, oh yeah, hello, worry much, I mean, I think when I look back on my youth and everything, he's my mirror. My middle is definitely my mirror. So he is prone to head in that direction. And not only is he prone, I think we're hearing, and Galloway talks about this too, this is the age of anxiety, this generation, and maybe your kids too, I'm not sure. I also think they're going to outsmart us. So let me just put that addendum over here. But yes, they have a really profound level of anxiety, concern, rumination. So I have even a bigger sort of soft spot in my heart for not just him, but all of these kids that I see really dealing with this. And look, a book, whatever, these aren't going to solve all of our problems, but to have tools matter. They really matter. If you tried to build a house with just a screwdriver and no hammer, you could do it. I mean, it's going to be a bigger process. Yeah. So I'm a fan of get the tools that work, throw away the rest, and then go easy on yourself. Yeah, right? There absolutely. Is no magic apple.
I love the idea of as parents, as people, as partners, as friends, being able to encourage each other of building that toolbox. Because we all need it, and we need them to be sharpened. It's not a one and done sort of thing either.
Exactly.
I want to ask you, after years of working as a personal coach, I want to ask you specifically about this demographic that is listening. This 40, 50, 60-year-old woman who is in the middle third, as we like to call it, who is trying to make sense of what was so she can make sense of what is and what will be. What have you heard in your clients and your peers? What have you heard as being some of the most profound struggles of women in this stage of life?
So interesting, because I feel it's shifted in the last couple of years. So I'm just letting my heart sit with it for a minute.
Yeah.
The thing that most populates, I would say currently, and I would actually, so I work with men and women. And I'm going to say I'm seeing this across the board. So that's also unique. And I'm answering you in real time, by the way. I did not think about this prior, but I'm going to say authentic connection is what people are most yearning for. I think that sometimes, let me correct that. I feel that especially this particular chapter, wants to revert back to an old paradigm of what do I do with my life? What is my, what do I do with my time, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel if we pulled the layers back, we might discover that it's a lack of connection too. It's not just a job or money even, or any of those things. They might be, and for sure they could be at the party, but I think that underneath there somewhere, the mattress, not the blanket, is connection, authentic connection.
Yeah.
That's
I have to tell you, I actually got chills when you were saying this. We did so a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, we had our first live event, our big LA event, 200 women. You need to come.
Yay. I love it.
And we had only launched the Liberty Road platform like 6 months prior. When we got back, we put out a survey, and when we got the feedback back, to our surprise, to our collective surprise, everybody on the team that read this, people talked about lacking friendships, wanting us to help them make those connections, feeling like they came to a life or a point in life where they either wanted to kind of shake the soccer moms that they had been hanging out with that they didn't necessarily need to anymore. And so much love for the soccer moms. I'm still friends with many of them. But as your role shifts, so shifts those things. They talked a lot about looking at friendships and saying, some of these are toxic and are not serving me. And I was so surprised to hear so many women feeling so disconnected. So you absolutely nailed it. The other thing you said, and it's no surprise because I know that you are a Martha Beck certified. You did your part of your certification.
That's where I did,
with her.
One of my certifications is through her. Yeah.
And she, we were just talking about this, and she says, and I think it's in her first book. I don't remember the name of the book, so I feel you probably will when I say this. But she talks about her work of people coming in and saying what they want out of life. And, whether it's a car or money or a relationship or whatever, to be married, let's say, not a connected relationship, but just not that that's not a connected relationship, but they were looking at something to have. And then she said the second question that she asks is, okay, but what are you yearning for? And that you just said the word yearning, that we're yearning for connection. And that's what she said is the number one thing that comes out of these, no matter how high profile the person is, no matter if the person has, chosen not to have children or whatever the circumstance, that in the end, that everyone is yearning for connection and yearning for love. And you just said that. So you said it so well. And in your work, it sounds like you're seeing more and more of that. You said that you think this has shifted in the last few years. What did you think it was before?
Well, I had to feel into it because it does feel like that to me. It feels like the roots are rooted in a desire and a misunderstanding about connection.
Yeah.
And I'll say what I think it was before, but just to say about that a little bit more, we are the most moving generation. So if you are in your 40s, 50s, you probably have moved multiple, I mean, maybe once or twice, but moved. Okay. We don't stay close to our family of origin. We are the biggest generation to do that. We are the generation that a lot of, I think, women, and I was going to say, I'm seeing this with men too, which I think is kind of fascinating also, but so many shifts in career. So I think the timeline right now for like C-level is 3 years. 4 would be a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
So really fascinating metrics to sort of look at. When you take all of those and you look at each one of them, the skill set that was never taught was how to make friends. We fell into it, or it came about because of, like you mentioned soccer moms, like, well, these are the people I'm with, or I'm at work and these are the people I'm with. And you certainly could maybe find your most connected ones within those arenas, except that I don't believe that we got the conscious part. We sort of unconsciously created connection. And I feel as life clicks forward and you find yourself in these different moments in different rooms, really truly learning how to make a friend, be a friend, have authentic connection. It's a thing we kind of, I think a lot of us don't know, or know in our bones. Ironically, and I promise you, this is not pre-planned in any way. There is a chapter in Flow about this because when I look back to what I feel like was going on prior, obviously that's been there all along, or I wouldn't have put it in the book, which is, it's a little more on the nose. I have moved 27 times. Okay. I'm married to an actor. This is what happened in life. I I'm probably the Jedi of all Jedis when it comes to finding community in new places. And it's not because I want to, but because I've had to learn on the job. So I have a really unique point of view about what it means to find people and know if they're your people. And also I got the unique opportunity that when you move, you also get out of toxic relationships without doing the hard work. So I had to go back and do the hard work, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I think it was, man, to me, it feels like hustle culture was so dominating that people that were in my world or clients in my world, that occupied so much space. But you just said it too, probably connection was under there.
Yeah.
But what was populating at the top was kind of these goals, these things that I'm sort of executing on, strategy, a lot of that kind of stuff. And I definitely work on that with people for sure. That's part of the work. But I'm hearing people say more often, I feel lonely. These are really high, what do I say? Like high operating individuals. These are, I call them the snaps. We move fast, we work fast. And it's rare that I've heard them often really go there. In those ways. And so that's why I think connection popped up for me for sure right now as being highest on the radar.
Yeah. I think you're right on. I think you've absolutely hit it. What do you think? I mean, it's funny. My next question was, what are they yearning for? And we just unpacked all of that.
Yay for us.
But yeah, yay for us. We just launched something recently, which is for our member community. They get to ask a question in the podcast, and this particular person asked to remain nameless. But her question, and she hasn't read your book. I think it's pretty obvious. But she's asking. And hopefully when she listens to this, she'll get some of the goods.
No,
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic.
That was a joke. I'm joking.
No, that was good. That was good though. You should have been maybe thinking comedian, not DJ. I'm just saying. Okay. But she's asking, she's in a position, it's a long question. So she's in a position, I'm summarizing, of trying to figure out what's next, which makes sense because she's in this community. And she is asking, what questions should she be asking herself to determine, it sounds like kind of what she's good at. I'm going to say, maybe we can lean into the conversation we just had about the talent and the passion, but she just wants to know from you, an executive coach, like, what would you ask her if she came to you and said, I don't know what's next. I don't know how to figure out what's next. Sounds like she's maybe a little distant from herself right now. What question should she be asking herself?
I have one word.
Yeah.
Why? That's what I would say. And then I would say it again and again and again until we got to the root. Why do you want a next chapter? Why do you care? Why do you'd have to go back and forth with this person. Yeah. But I feel, in fact, this is an actual tool. It's called the 5 Whys. People can look this up. It's been around for a really long time. So if you really wanted to just, geek out on it, you can look that up.
Yeah.
But for me, I work so deeply from the heart and sort of from an intuitive place. So yes, that is a tool one could use, but I would really want to know why. Like, start asking yourself whys all the time. And then maybe ask, okay, what am I good at? What do I like to do? Because I think if your why came back with, I'm bored, I feel I need to have something, or I don't matter. I wonder about those questions with people. And it's kind of a first stage. It's kind of too hard to do without that person sitting in front of me. But
yeah,
that first stage of get really clarified on, like, who are you and why are you doing what you do in the first place? And if it is connected to anybody else's beliefs about you, why you matter in this world, then girlfriend, throw that sucker right out the window and let's go back to square one. Because no good choice was ever made from when we were thinking about it through somebody else's lens, ever.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Amen to that. Wow.
yeah, right. I mean, if you just went down and everybody had prescription glasses at a table and you started putting them on, it's blurry. They're not yours. They're not yours. Okay. So don't do that to yourself. And I'm really cautious of that personally and professionally with people of you will make the best decisions with your own glasses on and knowing thyself. And fun facts from President of the Science Club with an archaeologist father. The first, I know it's like the double done is just bananas, but the first words, and somebody's going to fact check me on this. And so that's okay, but let's just go with it because it's more fun this way. The first words that we know that we could understand said man. I like to say woman because whatever. So let's go with person. Man, know thyself. Hello. If that was the first thing written in hieroglyphics or however they discovered it.
Yeah.
Know thyself. That's pretty freaking powerful.
Yeah.
You know, if you can know thyself, you might make some choices that are very different. But something's telling me with this question that there's still an attachment to an outside point of view. And I don't know why I feel that. So
You're not.
So mom, mom, I just want you to know, don't worry about what Sally thinks down the road. Okay. We're going to move on from that.
I love it.
No, I'm just kidding. But I also wanted to tell you that, well, never mind. Continue.
Well,
I know we don't have much time,
you said hieroglyphics, and it reminded me of our 90-minute conversation where you really want to go to Egypt. You found out I was Egyptian, and we're like, okay, let's make this happen. But really what that got me thinking about was something I wanted to hit on. At the top of the conversation, I said that you were also a philanthropist, and we've hit on your other professional things. But you had launched something in Africa that was really meaningful for you. Can you just share that with us? Because I want people to hear how you can be both and, how you can pursue something, lean into that work professionally, but also have your heart calling you to something else that is of equal meaning and measure and requires as much work. But could you just share that really quickly with us, Kelley?
Yeah, I mean, that timeline of life, I had the opportunity to go to the continent of Africa the first time when I was 20, and it really impacted me. And part of that journey was we had gone to various different places and seen different things. And something in my heart just said, if I ever return, I want to help. I want to be a helper in these communities if I can. And cut forward about 15 years, there was an opportunity to start a nonprofit called the Shear Foundation, which was a education-based nonprofit for Sudanese refugees that were placed in the United States. And our mission was brief. It was to say yes to anybody who had an educational cause, and we paid for and raised money for them to accomplish any goals, any school goals, anything at all. And what also popped into my head too, because I want to say this because I think this is important also. Yes, that's the and yes, we can do multiple things. But I would also say, could I do that right now? I don't know. I don't know if I could. That was a timeline where I had that space and that capacity. And I'm really speaking more to your audience right now, but I want to be careful to say like, hey, do all the things. No. And that was a time when I could, and it was pulling my heart and my interest to the degree that I felt I could accomplish the mission. And I didn't want to make it so obtuse that I couldn't finish it. So that's that. And then what is interesting when we're talking about this, I've been doing this now for, like I said, almost 15 years and love what I do. And I believe I'm good at what I do. And I just launched a umbrella company within my company in January because it was pulling my heart. And again, do I have time? No. I don't actually. I mean, I do, but it's when something's pulling at your heart to the degree that you cannot not think about it or do it, or that might be one of the keys here. I could not do the Cricket Project. It was, as your phone was ringing, if you guys didn't hear it before, I'm going to say it here now. Netta's phone was ringing, her home phone was ringing. And we have this metaphor in my world, which is if the phone, metaphor, proverbial, phone keeps ringing, pick it. Eventually, you're going to have to pick it up. It won't stop ringing. And the Cricket Project for me kept calling, had to pick it up. The Sheer Foundation kept calling, had to pick it up. You know, eventually there's these things that kind of just keep knocking on your door. And I definitely would say that's where you want to put your heart and your focus, but be careful of putting it on something from the past, like we said before, because you feel like you have to, or you're supposed to, or that your value is attached to it, because that's a whole bunch of shenanigans. That's a bunch of shenanigans.
Yeah.
But man, if the knock comes, we still laugh. I can't believe I launched another company because I thought, what in the flip-flops are we doing? But like I said, I couldn't not do it. So maybe that's our whole bow on this conversation too. Pay attention to that, the yearning of the heart.
And also that we don't need to do. I think it was really wonderful that you said you were in a season where you could do those things, and to pay attention to the season that you're in. And maybe it's not a place for you to do multiple things.
Right now, no. And, there's a running joke amongst my friends where I'll say, ladies, like, I might have to sit on one of my friends' hands at the next PTA meeting, because can we do that? I mean, and at what cost? What's happening? Just, we're so conditioned so much of the time in that obligatory place, and that, I don't even know what we can call it right now, but woman, know thyself, and ask thyself, is my time equity worth this thing? And can I put my whole heart into it? And I don't know if it's not cool to say, but I don't think I could do some of the things I've done in the past today. So I'd like for people to hear that timeline. I didn't have 3 children and all these other things happening. So could my life circle back towards? Absolutely. I hope I'm awake enough that I see the things and I feel the things the way that I did when the Sheer Foundation was born, because the feeling is what activated the action. And I hope that I stay awake in that way in my life moving forward, enough to feel enough to figure out where my action and my time belong.
Well, if we're taking your practices to heart and we are creating space, in being intentional about that time equity that you've talked about, my hope is that we will be able to feel and be awake for a very long time and circle back to those things. You're a gem, Kelley. It's such a treat to talk to you. And not that you need another thing to start, but I would challenge you to consider, those like word a day, kind of like you learn a new word a day. I think there needs to be like a Kelley-ism a day between your metaphors and your what in the flip-flop. I just need a little bit every day, because you are hilarious. That was awesome.
I know. I'm kind of like, dang, I missed the you know what? Next chapter. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Is this thing on? I'm going to start with and it's funny you should say that, and then I'll wrap it up. But humor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what happened to humor, you guys? We take everything so seriously. I love humor. I love laughing. I love funny. I love silly. And I'm a very serious person in my life, in my work too. So man, funny is good. So
funny
flip-flops
and
all. It's really good. It is good.
Okay, I'm going to wrap us up with our final question, which is, how has this work that you're doing, the work of being a coach, of being an author, of being a speaker, how has this liberated you, Kelley Wolf, the woman?
I'm here. I'm just feeling for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this. I've had a pretty amazing life thus far. I hope to continue doing it that way, but dynamic and interesting and following a lot of fishing lines. And the last 3 to 4 years have been some of the hardest that I've ever experienced. And we're all human. I've had big T trauma, little T, the whole kit and caboodle. I will say without hesitation, that this work and learning it and knowing it and breathing it absolutely probably didn't just save just me, but saved a lot of people around me because I was able to be steady in a storm that I'm not sure Kelley circa 2001 was as good at, or even, nor should she be. That was that time in her existence. But I will be truly on my knees and so grateful that the universe brought me to learn, because I was able to have my sailboat drift the sailboats behind me, and I'm like, hey, every day I'd be like, okay, this is the day that tips over. And they'd be like, nope, still okay. Like I was ready for it. I thought, go ahead, I get tipped, right? And then I didn't, and then I didn't. And I kept thinking, this is weird. This is weird. This is weird. So I feel like it's liberated me in the way of not just giving me peace, but reminding me that peace exists in a storm. And wow, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew?
That's a rich answer, and one that we haven't heard a bunch of. I appreciate it because I think for everybody it has some meaning. It's something that they can grasp. So thank you for that. Kelley, thanks for hanging out. Yeah. Thank you for making this
Anytime.
time for us. So appreciate it. So appreciate you.
It's a pleasure. And maybe I'll see you in Egypt.
Yes, I'm planning on it.
I'll have flip-flops. I'll be the girl with flip-flops.
For sure. And Liberty listeners, thank you guys for hanging out with me and with Kelley, and we will talk to you guys next week. Bye for now.